Welcome everyone to a video announcement for an upcoming series on To End All Wars. This will be a multiplayer series. I am joined here by the Historical Gamer. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you doing, friend? Or should I say, oh God, I can't even do a Russian accent, so I shouldn't even try.
Oui, monsieur.
Well, for fuck's sake. Oh God.
Well, that's I guess we kind of already mentioned who we'll be playing as. The reason why we're announcing together is because this is the Entente, the Triple Entente. Was that what they were called? Or
Yes. Wait, why am I going French? I don't know.
that you can take France if you want, but no, you
Uh,
must play as
ugh.
Russia.
I would much prefer to play. I've played to End All Wars, but it seems like XTRG is, which spoiler alert, or so Tortuga and I are going to be playing as the allies in To End All Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and XTRG, which you may remember from our Rule the Waves series, is going to be playing as the Central Powers. And by the way, I'm pretty sure there's something I should be offended by the fact that the Eastern Entente doesn't get their own little portrait there, and both the Western Entente and the Germans get their own. But XTRG, if you remember from our a Rule the Waves series, will be playing as the Central Powers. Tortuga will be playing as the Western Entente, so he'll be playing as the French and hopefully the British.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be playing as the Eastern Entente, which I believe is the Russians and the Serbians, if I'm correct, and then potentially Romania or anyone else who joins us out east. But it'll be interesting to see because I've played to End All Wars, but I am not terribly good at age-odd games in general, and it seems I don't want to be throwing a spoiler in here or saying, we're screwed Tortuga, but XTRG, I watched his intro video and he seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah, I. It might not be a spoiler. I mean, we're not saying don't watch the series at all, but this might end up very ahistorical. We are kind of
So,
joking, like you defend at St. Petersburg, and I'll hold them off at like Orleans or something.
hey, as long as we hold them off somewhere, right? I mean, I'm happy playing as the Eastern Entente because at the very least, like I can be incompetent and that's playing in character, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm just going to blame it on our Elan. We don't have enough Elan in the front.
Where are my battleships? Can I design my I need a triple turret battleship here to deal with the onrushing Russians because I know rule the waves, but to end all wars this will be an interesting challenge.
This may be payback though, because I did give XTRG a pretty hard time in the Rule the Waves series, so this might be like karma coming back and biting me in the butt. But I
That's
think it's
fair
really
because
important.
I was accusing him of treason and all of that, and now he's probably going to just absolutely overrun us and make a Reich that will literally last 1,000 years, except under Kaiser Wilhelm.
Yeah, I think it also fits his personality. I think if we can just go ahead and slam XTRG a little bit more, he's got this like dark side to him, so that fits very much the Central Powers. Um, Plus, he tried to sabotage our Rule the Waves campaign with all his very silly designs. So
Well, I mean, we might as well slam him now because his armies will be slamming us very shortly.
yeah, this is our last chance, really. By the way, I don't know if you've already set up any kind of excuses, but I might have something which takes me away from this series indefinitely. Coming like if after a month or so we're just getting killed.
Indefinitely? I mean, I know you said you had a kid, but indefinitely?
Well, what I mean to say in like so many words is if we're getting killed, I'm just going to discontinue playing.
So you're just gonna quit.
Yeah,
I don't know
like
that that's pulling you away. You're just basically playing France and
well,
saying
I surrender, right?
I mean,
French.
again, fitting for being the Western Entente. Not so much the British side. I think Churchill's somewhere in your army, somewhere on there in the Belgian coast. But fitting for France anyway.
Well, let's just see what the game looks like, so we can laugh a little bit more about how preposterous the situation is. I also want to mention that if people are interested in getting kind of a good rundown of the scenario, I do recommend it. I'll probably put a link to XTRG's announcement video in this one, but There it is, the game in all its glory.
It's a map of Europe.
Yeah, I plan to hold somewhere over here.
So you better not be creating a separate piece and setting up Vichy France.
That's
and
right.
leaving me to deal with,
The taxis in Paris will only move west. And
Oh, great.
where's your
Well,
line?
I mean, I think it's worth calling out that I have played personally some To End All Wars. I played a short series. I want to say it was 10 or 11 videos where I was actually playing as the Western Entente. I wasn't playing as Russia. I was just playing as basically France and Britain. And I did okay, but it was against the computer. AJOD games are interesting where they have it's one of those things where it's really easy to play turn by turn, but there's a ton of detail and depth beneath the hood, so that if you can play for a good 10, 15, 20 turns where you really don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of, all right, I'm moving units here. These graphs or bars or charts seem to be on my side, but it's one of those games where it's sort of sneaky deep, right? Where there's a lot of information, a lot of planning you need to make going forward, and you can kind of get by for a little while as is, but if you don't really think about it long term, eventually it will come back to bite you. And I think that's probably where we'll struggle. Like, I know you're kind of making light of the fact that you're not an expert. I'm not an expert. XTRG is already talking about, he's like, I always play as the Central Powers. It's like, oh, you've played this a bunch of times? Well, that's good to know. At least I've got a lot of real estate to surrender, but hopefully the communists don't come up and bite me in the ass. But I guess the point is, at the end of the day, we're both relatively new. Fortunately, the way that the Entente has to play is there's a little bit of a grace period in there where France has some territory to give. Russia definitely has some territory to give, and hopefully we can learn the mechanics as we play and share our strategy with you, and stop XTRG from plunging Europe into 1,000 years of darkness.
Yeah, I mean the game mechanics are pretty deep. I was looking at it. I'm actually much more familiar with AJOD's Civil War 2 than I am To End All Wars, but hopefully, I mean, I think a lot of the game mechanics are very similar.
Yeah, this isn't meant as a shot across the bow against AJOD, but I feel like a lot of the mechanics for any of their games are pretty similar, right? They seem to run off the same game engine. So if you know one of them, I think you've got a better concept of how the game works. I played probably 15 to 20 turns as the Western Entente. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, but ended up doing okay in my limited Let's Play series on YouTube. So hopefully I can replicate that experience of being clueless and yet successful.
It seems to be especially fitting for, yeah, like you said, the nations we're playing, in particular you as Russia, because it didn't seem like Russia had a clue what they were doing in their opening huge defeats. So,
hey, I won't march two armies and separate them by a lake, and then not coordinate them and let them both die.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
Note to self: don't attack two armies on opposite sides of the Masurian lakes.
Yeah, and have one like posed to defend against Königsberg when all the armies further south. Yeah. But if you do that, at least buy France enough time by forcing Germany to redeploy 2 corps. That would be great.
I mean, we'll have to see what the visionary Rasputin thinks about all this. We may need to consult him on our strategy. Speaking of that, I think one of the interesting things about this sort of a gameplay or Let's Play is that you've got XTRG, who's kind of out on his own, right, playing as the Germans. But on the Entente side, you've got an allied coalition of countries, but it's not one unified mind. It's not one person. I think strategy games in general suffer from the fact that you could be playing as a single country in Crusader Kings, and you have this singular vision of what your country needs to do. Even though there's 30 different monarchs, you all are really one player playing the game. And I think To End All Wars has a really interesting mechanic where you have the Eastern and the Western Entente as their separate players, where, you know, Tortuga, you may have a very different view of what France needs to do to be successful than I do as the Eastern Entente in Russia. So I think it's really interesting because we'll see two separate players playing the quote unquote allies and yet approaching the game from potentially a different perspective, and yet also needing to, between two different people, figure out how are we going to coordinate our actions. But it seems more real to me. I don't know about your thoughts around this, but it seems more real to say, like, Russia's their own person, France and Britain are their own people, and that natural tension of figuring out, like, what's in the best interest of me as Russia to stay alive and not have a revolution, and you as France to stay alive and not get overrun, but on the flip side, so that we can work together to ensure a common victory. And I think you don't get a lot of games that do that, and I really like this sort of three-way multiplayer capability in this game where you can have that natural tension between allies where you have to look out for yourself, but you also have to look out for your common cause.
Yeah, and I think that we were thinking for a long time about what kind of game we should play, the three of us, after our Rule the Waves series, and I don't know why this didn't come up earlier. It just fits perfectly with the three players. And to the point of us somewhat collaborating, I guess the style that we'll be doing for the videos, although it's possibly subject to change when we confer more with XTRG, is we'll be doing each our own playlist, and you guys can feel free to jump around. Obviously, there shouldn't be any spoilers from one channel to another. And then the Historical Gamer and myself will come together every so many game turns for a little conference just to see how we're doing and share our recent defeats with each other.
Yeah, and I mean, that's worth calling out. Like, this game, if you're playing as the Eastern Entente, it doesn't show you what the French are doing in detail. You get some semblance of what's going on between France and Germany, but it's not like a satellite view where, you know, oh, they've overrun this country or that city or that, you know, that territory. So I think that'll be kind of cool. I think we talked about maybe every 10 turns, maybe less than that initially, of meeting up and having sort of a joint video where we talk about, here's what's going on in France, here's what's going on in Russia, here's our strategy, let's get together. It's very, you know, Potsdam-y. I know that's World War II, but it's an interesting mechanic that not many World War anything games have, where you have separate players within an alliance. And again, fitting that XTRG is playing as the Central Powers, because we sure ragged on him, probably unfairly, in Rule the Waves. And now he'll have his revenge against us, as he seems to be the expert, and we may not be.
Yeah, I agree with everything there. It's every dog has his day. It's no longer our turn.
Yeah, I don't really have a good response to that other than saying I hope we don't get our asses kicked and don't lose before the end of 1914.
I mean, yeah, I suppose that if things happen really poorly, we can always, like, broker a replay or something. I don't know.
It's yeah, I mean, we could do a replay, we could do a different game, we could do Command, but
yeah.
By the way, I think this game is on sale right now.
Oh, good point.
On Matrix Games. So, you know, I personally haven't been in depth in a lot of these age-odd games, but if these future videos sort of prompt you to take a look at the game, I think it's an interesting series of games that really provide a level of depth that you don't typically see in strategy games, and I just hope, you know, I think we'll have a lot of fun, whether XTRG whips us in 3 weeks or not. I think this will be an interesting experience, because in our previous experience with Rule the Waves, it was very much a collaborative, you know, XTRG goes, then I go, then you go, Tortuga. And in this game, it's kind of a mixed bag of, we're trying to figure out how to work together, but we're our own countries. We're not one country that is kind of communicating across generations. And yet we're also playing against one of our co-streamers. So I think from a user perspective, it'll probably be interesting for you to watch XTRG's channel to see his thought process, watch Tortuga's channel to see his thought process, and watch my channel to see, you know, me, the Historical Gamer, my thought process. And I think it could be really amusing to see how we perceive what our opponent is doing, or even maybe how we perceive what our ally is doing. I think those conferences are really going to be crucial between us, Tortuga, to set a common agenda of, you launch an offensive here to accomplish this, and I'm going to do this, and hopefully that works together to overwhelm the Central Powers. But I think it'll be a very real sort of experience to say, what were some of the challenges that even allies had to overcome in World War One to operate effectively?
All I know is we have reports of a large Russian force heading through England, bound for the Western Front. I think that was a fake or an actual false report reported in World War One. The French actually had heard rumors that the Russian troops were moving like a force to help out on the west. I don't remember. I read that from The Guns of August by I forget the lady's name, Bachman or what's
Barbara Tuchman.
Tuchman, thank you. Yes,
Tuchman, whatever it is.
So
okay,
it's in there somewhere. Well, let's try to keep this announcement video not too long because we don't really have much to say yet. But stay tuned. This series will probably be going live not for another week and a half, maybe 2 weeks or so, because there's some stuff that's needs to happen first before we can get to it.
The only thing people need to know is it's your fault.
It is. It is. I will once again deflect that by saying this game is on sale if you want to pick it up. Also, Commander: The Great War is on sale if you're interested in a different World War One game, which I actually like. I quite like both of these games. I couldn't decide which one I like more. They're very different. Commander is hex based. This is just your standard Age-Odd game. So.
I mean, technically there's hexes in this game as well, but I think it's like comparing Panzer General to, I hate to use this comparison, but like Gary Grigsby games. Like they're just two different levels. Like it's not really Gary Grigsby level of detail. It doesn't quite go that detailed, but it's literally like a sort of 0 to 10 strength units moving across 30 hexes of Western Europe versus, what you can see in front of you.
Huh. I didn't realize that it's actually a hex formation.
Well, I mean, obviously you're hovering over them. They're not polygons or hexagons, but they're definitely hexes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's strange. It appears each territory has 6 surrounding territories. I'll be a monkey's uncle.
I don't know. To me, hexes are any geometric shape that defines different regions, whether it's a hexagon, a pentagon. I don't really care. To me, it's the same concept versus a real-time environment where there's no clear delineation of sectors.
Okay, well, I'm going to cut this off because otherwise we're going to go on for a long time. So, thanks for watching this announcement video. Any closing thoughts?
No, I hope you guys all enjoy the video. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Tortuga and I have already been talking for like an hour and a half about college basketball. So, hopefully this video was a look inside what we're trying to accomplish, what we're, the series that's upcoming, and I hope you guys all enjoy and tune in. And feel free to watch XTRG's streams, watch my streams, watch Tortuga's, not streams but videos, and laugh at us for being so wrong about what our opponent is doing. But I think it's an interesting idea of kind of 3 different sides to a conflict. One of them is the opposition, 2 is the allies, and everybody taking their own perspective of playing the game. And I hope it's entertaining. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And I'm also really looking forward to it. It is really going to be a blast. I know that these games ends up being a real mind game, though. So,
yeah, maybe. I mean, I had a hell of a lot of fun with Rule of Waves, and we were all on the same team there, and we gave XTRG, good lord, you're Tortuga. Yeah. We gave XTRG a fair bit of flack in all good fun. But now frankly he's the expert here and we're kind of the novices, so he'll have a chance to get some retribution against us, and I just hope that it makes for some entertaining videos, and I'm looking forward to it. Whether we win or lose, to me these kind of games are a lot of fun. And Age-Odd's really the only company out there that makes this kind of a game. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, I agree. And with that, we'll conclude. So go Bruins and take care.
Go Badgers, and thanks for listening, guys.
Damn it.